Hello everyone, this is Miss Choi. Thank you for joining me for ELA Lesson Step 1, the instruction video. Today is Monday, May 11th. As always, we're going to start by going over the learning objective or learning goal for today's lesson. As I read, I would like you to follow along and read out loud with me. Ready? Begin. I will be able to compare and contrast two main points on the same topic. Notice how I highlighted the words compare and contrast. These are the key words we will be focusing on this entire week. Before we begin, I would like to focus your attention on some ATL, approaches to learning, skills that we will be using throughout the lesson. You might already be familiar with these from the weekly reflection we did last week. There are 5 ATL skills, but we are going to focus on 2. Can you guess what they are? If you guessed communication skills and thinking skills, you are right. Now, I want you to pause the video and read through each list. What skills might we use throughout this lesson? For communication skills, we are practicing our listening and viewing skills. In fact, we're doing that right now. For thinking skills, we will practice comprehension and analysis skills. We will go over how we use these skills at the end of the lesson, but I want to encourage you to think about how we are practicing those skills as you are viewing this instruction. What does compare and contrast mean? These were the key words from our learning objective. Compare means how things are alike. Like this rocket ship and how these stars, they all have a relationship because they all can be found in space. Contrast, it means how things are different. Like this palette of paint and the apple, they have no relationship whatsoever. They are different in every way. Why? Why do we need to learn to compare and contrast? Sometimes we need to explain. We also might need to evaluate. For example, you might compare and contrast the kinds of pets. We can explain by helping someone understand how to take care of pets. We can also evaluate by showing why one type of pet is better for someone. How? How do we know what to compare and contrast? We usually compare and contrast things that have similarities. Would you compare a cat with a crayon? They are too different to compare and contrast. We wouldn't be able to find any similarities because they are not the same kind. A cat is an animal. As to crayons, they are supplies. This is an example of a Venn diagram. You probably already know how it is used, but this graphic organizer helps us organize our notes when we compare and contrast two things. The center of where the two circles overlap are for the similarities or the things that are alike. Each side of the circle is for the differences. For example, let's compare and contrast a cat and a dog. We can compare these two because they have similarities. What is the similarity? They are both animals or pets. First, let's see how they are different. What term do we use again? Contrast. Let's start by going over how a cat is different from a dog. A cat is independent. It meows or purrs and difficult to train. Now let's see how a dog is different from a cat. It's affectionate. It barks, woofs, or growls and dogs are willing to be trained. Now, let's see how they are similar or alike. What term do we use for that? Compare. They're both great pets. They are both animals. They also have 4 legs. Now, I'm sure these are not the only similarities, and of course, these are not the only differences, but these are just a couple of examples of how we can compare and contrast these two pets. Now, we're going to practice doing one together using a reading passage. Let's read the 2 texts about honeybees and yellow jackets. Please read out loud with me, starting with the honeybees. Honeybees. Honeybees are a type of bee. Honeybees are a flying insect known for their ability to collect nectar from flowers and produce honey. Honeybees are mustard yellow and brown. They have fat bodies that are covered with many hairs so pollen will stick to them. Honeybees have 3 major body parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. They have 4 wings and 2 antennae as well. Honeybees do have a stinger, and if the bee feels threatened, it will sting. It can only sting 1 time. After a honeybee stings, its stinger falls out and it will die. The honeybee's main job is to pollinate plants. Without honeybees, fruits would not be able to grow. Can you imagine a world with no fruit? Honeybees harvest nectar and pollen from flowering plants. Honeybees are social insects that live in large colonies. The queen bee and worker bees all have special jobs to help support the colony. Honeybees live in large groups called colonies. An average beehive can hold around 50,000 bees. Now, we're going to read this text about yellow jackets. Are you ready? All right, let's begin by reading the heading. Ready? Begin. Yellow jackets. Yellow jackets are a type of wasp. Yellow jackets are yellow and black with stripes or bands on their abdomen. Workers are skinny and around ½ inch long. Like all insects, yellow jackets have 6 legs and 3 major body parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. They have 4 wings and 2 antennae as well. Yellow jackets have a stinger at the end of their abdomen. A yellow jacket stinger doesn't usually come out when stinging, allowing it to sting several times. As a result, disturbing a yellow jacket nest can be very dangerous. Some people are allergic to the venom in a yellow jacket sting. A colony of yellow jackets is made up of workers and the queen. The queen stays in the nest and lays eggs. The worker's job is to protect the queen, build a nest, and get food for the queen. Some huge nests have been thought to exceed 100,000 wasps. Yellow jackets primarily eat fruit and plant nectar. They are attracted to human food as well, such as sweet drinks, candy, and juices. Sometimes they will eat other insects or try to steal honey from honeybees. Whew! Well done for reading with me. Now, we're going to use this Venn diagram to help organize our thoughts. We're going to compare and contrast honeybees with yellow jackets. To do that, we have to find some points in the text. Looking at the text again, what were some things that were similar or different? There are a couple of main points on how the two are alike or different. From what I comprehended, I am able to recall some important facts. I want you to try to see if you can name those main points. Overall, in both texts, it talked about the type of insect it was, its job, what it looked like, its body parts, its stinger, its food, and its nest or home. Now we're going to analyze the main points and use the Venn diagram to write it out. The left circle shows how honeybees are different from the yellow jackets. Likewise, the right circle shows how yellow jackets are different from honeybees. In the center, which is the part the two circles overlap, shows how honeybees and yellow jackets are similar or alike. As we are doing this, we're being thinkers. We had to comprehend the two texts. If we didn't grasp the meaning of both texts, we wouldn't have been able to identify the main points to compare and contrast. We are also analyzing right now by seeing the relationships of how they are similar, which happens when we compare. Additionally, we are analyzing because we are separating the main points into how they are different, which happens when we contrast. Now let's see how honeybees are different from a yellow jacket. A honeybee is a type of bee. A honeybee is mustard yellow and brown, fat, and have many hairs. A honeybee will die after one sting. Now there are many more different features. However, these are just a couple that I chose. Now let's see how yellow jackets are different. Notice how I am trying to contrast the same main point. So if I'm trying to contrast a type of insect, I need to do that for both. Because I said a honeybee is a type of bee, now I need to write how yellow jackets are different from that. So I wrote yellow jackets are a type of wasp. Over here on number 2, I wrote about how the honeybee looks like, okay? Which means I should also be saying how how the yellow jacket looks like that is different from the honeybees. So I wrote, a yellow jacket is yellow and black with stripes and are skinny. Okay, on here, it talks about stinger. So I also need to be talking about a stinger when I find the difference. Number 3, yellow jackets can sting multiple times. Do you see how these all have a relationship even though they are different? Now let's look at the similarities. 1, they have 3 body parts, head, thorax, and an abdomen. We read that both of these insects have 3 body parts. Number 2, both insects live in colonies and they both have a queen and workers. So these are just a few of the similarities of how honeybees and yellow jackets are alike. Now, this is the text that you will be asked to read to complete the independent practice. Below down here is a Venn diagram, which you will also see to help guide the process of comparing and contrasting these two texts. You are not going to write on the Venn diagram, but you are just going to use this to help you. Let's read these texts together, one at a time. Let's start with the dogs. I do want you to read out loud with me. Ready? Go. Dogs. People enjoy animals and having them as pets. Dogs are the best kind of animal to have for a pet. Dogs are playful. They like to play fetch and other games. Dogs are easy to train. They can learn how to sit, roll over, lay down, and many other tricks. Cats. Cats make great pets. Cats are easier to take care of. They sleep a lot, and they don't have to be taken on walks. Cats are happy to stay inside the house. Cats are also good hunters. If you have a mouse in your house, cats will catch them. Now, previously I had asked you to think about how you are practicing these skills during this instruction. Let's find out how we practice these skills. How are you a communicator and a thinker? How did you practice the listening, viewing, comprehension, and analysis skills? You are communicators because you practice listening skills. When you listen to the lesson, this happens when you listen to the ELA lesson, the ELD lesson, and the math lessons on Khan Academy. You are also practicing viewing skills when you are looking at the videos. Okay, videos of the lessons or the images. You're also looking at different types of multimedia. It could be range from web pages to books to videos, read-alouds, lessons. You are also thinkers because you practice comprehension skills. You practice this when you grasp meanings of text. That means you understand the text that you are reading. You also practice analysis skills when you see and find relationships when you compare the two texts, but then also separating them into parts when you are contrasting or finding the difference of text. Even though we don't always ask about these skills and talk about these skills, you are using and practicing these skills every day as you learn. On some days, you might use or practice a different set of skills, but for this week, we will continue to be a communicator and a thinker by listening, viewing, comprehending, and analyzing. Now you have officially completed step 1 of ELA. Click on the next button to complete step 2, which is independent practice. You will be rereading the text about dogs and cats, and you will be using the Venn diagram to help you guide you through the problems. Once you have completed step 2, then proceed to step 3 and check your work. Remember to show integrity and do your best before completing step 3.